Welcome back to the entertainment room, and if you need another reason to not go fucking around deep into the mysterious, unknown parts of the wilderness, look no further than the 2013 film, Devil's Pass. Some college students go hiking in the Ural Mountains in Russia, following the footsteps of 9 Russian hikers who ventured there, and 2 weeks later were found dead. This ominous tragedy was labeled the Dyatlov Pass Incident. Haven't done a found footage film in several episodes here, and this seemed like the perfect time of year to cover this little underrated gem. Snowy, isolated regions just make for such an excellent setting for horror in particular. The mysterious plot tacked on to the rugged survival aspect is just a story that's so attractive to me. But aside from Devil's Pass today, I will be doing my first quick movie review. I don't think this review itself will be very long, but I'm also going to add on a film I saw this weekend, Jason Statham's new film, The Beekeeper. You probably can already imagine how that went. But I will be doing some other quick movie reviews in the future, maybe dedicating some full videos to a few different films that I've seen, and just films I don't want to dedicate whole episodes to. But for now, is there anything that sets Devil's Pass apart from other found footage films, or is it more of the same? Let's discuss. The main protagonist of this group, if you want to call her that, is Holly. She is a psychology student at the University of Oregon, who is assigned a project by a professor to try and discover just what these hikers may have been going through, mentally leading up to their tragedy. What was on their minds as they stormed out of their tents in the middle of the night, leading up to their hypothermia and deaths. Deaths that appeared to occur all at once. So Professor wants her to not only go to Russia, but also wants her to hike in unpredictable, wintry conditions for a college degree? No fucking thank you, personally. But who am I to judge another's aspirations, particularly those of a character in a horror film? Holly is your standard, overly ambitious ass with the camera in this adventure. The "it was just the wind" type. The "it's not so bad" type. The "I'm not getting out of here without my 5 minutes of fame" type. There has to be at least one in a found footage horror film. This is law. But we have 5 main protagonists, and the acting is quite good actually for what I expected. Performances are convincing. As characters, however, they're not the most enjoyable, especially at first. Horny and or arrogant is their main personality type. But there are some redeemable qualities and decision-making abilities for some as the story goes on. I do find the plot intriguing, and hiking and camping films in general do tend to catch my attention. When it comes to the exposition and the setup for this film, it does take its time, but not necessarily in a bad way. It doesn't feel overly extended, as the storyline is really cool actually. The interviews with the professor and the locals when they get to Russia, particularly the elderly woman who found the hikers all those years ago, they are just really effective. Once on their trek, things do get progressively more chilling between mysterious findings, watching the crew endure unpredictable and constantly changing conditions. It's not the flashiest. A lot of slow burn suspense, strange noises, things in the background, conspiracy. And I do love the mountain setting, the winter vibe, really. Absolutely stunning scenery of the Ural Mountains, even in its haunting nature. And I will go ahead and warn about spoilers now, as I approach my thoughts about the climax and the finale. If you haven't seen Devil's Pass, I think it's worth a watch, personally. The finale, with one aspect, is kind of iffy in its design, and I will go into that in spoilers, but the twist itself is handled beautifully, I think. If you don't like found footage films, I'm not confident that this will flip you, but it is more competent with its story, and not quite as jarring with the camera work as many others can be. It is admirable, though, in its uniqueness and general care with which it's handled. But on to spoilers, one trope Devil's Pass, again, stays true to is Holly, for starters. Unstable emotions and priorities overrule logic every time. Greed, and toward the beginning of the hike, actually, the rest of the crew even kind of dropped their egos even a bit and felt it was in their best interest to abort mission. And at that point in the film, there's only some sketchiness, I would say. So it kind of made me respect these characters. At least some. Just a sliver more. When it comes to their bare minimum level-headedness for horror characters. But of course, going through that wouldn't make a real film, would it? And at the climax, I did not expect the direction it went in. I expected a so-so bloodthirsty creature reveal, but there's just so much more to it than that. My biggest complaint, though, has to be the design of these humanoid creatures, the results of the failed time travel experiments. It's a decent reveal, but the effect on how they move around was just handled so poorly. I understand the idea the creators had with the glitchiness and the teleportation and the side effects of their existence as they have it now, but just the warped glitching and teleportation effect they had on them with how it looked in a film, it just looked so awkward and cheap to be intimidating or scary. It's honestly hard to take it too serious to really feel that tension. And the actual look of these creatures, or these figures, was actually decent. If they kind of maneuvered more like normal or just simply feral or something along those lines, I think it would have been a better effect. Just crawling, running, walking even around. I just think it would have been much creepier for leading up to the finale. And also with this film, horror doesn't really feel like the predominant genre here a lot of the time. Kind of like a sci-fi thriller or mystery seems to be like the forefront up until this finale. And I don't hate it. I just wish they had handled the horror aspects a little bit better when that time came. The time machine and teleportation reveal, though, was the best part of this film to me. And I think many who have seen the film feel the same way. I love how all also loop back together, with our leads being the two extra bodies the elderly woman saw all those years ago, but was denied access to them by the government. And our protagonist jumping time and becoming those creatures was a really nice twist. And director Rennie Harlin has a pretty solid filmography under his belt. His talent's being contributed to many other successful films, such as Deep Blue Sea, Cutthroat Island, Cliffhanger, Die Hard 2. I think he did a really great job with this one as a whole. It seems like he took something different from his normal style, and it's nice to see it pay off, at least in my opinion. But I'll go with Devil's Pass being a 6.8 out of 10. Part of the reveal was disappointing, plus some character issues, but really a solid found footage at the end of the day. That's my review for Devil's Pass. Next I will go into my quick thoughts, on the Beekeeper. So let's get into it. And now, our next Jason Statham action film, probably about the 50th he's had in his career. But really there has not been that much out lately that my wife and I have really wanted to see. Of course it is January and that's normally a slower time for films. But we had some gift cards for snacks, plus we are AMC stub members, so we get 3 free films a week if we wanted to for a monthly fee, so we're like, why not? We haven't been in a few weeks. Now I do like Jason Statham. He plays nearly the same personality in every film, sometimes more humorous in others, but he's a decent action star with his fight scenes. And The Beekeeper is essentially a revenge film. Something bad happens to someone Jason Statham cares about, and now he's out to get them. He is skillful because he's a retired member of a powerful underground organization known as the Beekeepers, and yeah, off he goes. I'll try and avoid spoilers, as this film just came out recently, and again, I'm not dedicating a whole big episode to this. I just kind of want to give my general thoughts, but it's an okay action film, I guess. I think the R rating was a good choice for the more convincing, gritty violence a revenge film needs. The fight scenes are a bit too dumb in a couple places, for sure, as you can expect, but they are entertaining. So if you're okay turning off your brain and just enjoying a dumb popcorn film with ass kicking, it's a fine film. And you will get some laughs out of it, whether the film wanted you to laugh or not. As David Ayer, the director, said, this is kind of meant to pay homage to like past 80s and 90s action films, just really over the top, boisterous extravaganza, but I don't feel like it quite leans into that enough to be as interesting as a classic 80s or 90s film. I think it needed to go a bit bigger compared to what we get. And would I pay the $10 to $20 or whatever movies tend to cost these days in the theaters? Probably not. One of my issues, though, is the fact that the film seems to want to be something other than what it truly is. And you could argue it's not trying to be, but I just feel like they try and set it up to have this like deep thinking, emotional aspect to it, at least a little bit. It just doesn't really work. And plus we get some poor line delivery from characters, but most notably Jason Statham himself. Not that Statham can't potentially handle depth or content or anything like that. I more so blame the writing and how it's presented with his cheesy monologues and this right and wrong debate. Plus some of the other actors aren't nearly as convincing. If you expect to get any kind of decent laughs or remotely charming dialogue, it's going to be from Jeremy Irons' character. And this felt like the most real performance to me by the time the film was over. One-man army films are fun and of course can be a bit stupid, obviously. They're not meant to be taken completely seriously. You have Jason Statham here fighting off multiple trained professionals as they come at him one at a time. Or here you have a multi-billion-dollar company with a quantity of security guards that are a lot shittier than a bank, or hell, maybe even a fucking Walmart or a mall. Just a smaller number of guards than you would expect. Then also you have Josh Hutcherson as one of the main villains, which was an interesting choice. But his character is kind of goofy enough in an intentional way for me to kind of buy it. A lot of these villains actually are very David Ayer-like with some of the get-ups and the looks of them. But basically, he's a drugged-up rich kid who's a bit smarter than you think. And I was fine with him ultimately. I'm sure many other people would have bigger problems, but he's a fine actor usually, so I just kind of let that go. There's some bits of decent intentional comedy, either through dialogue or some of the kills Statham's character orchestrated. There were chuckles in the audience I sat with here and there. It was a decent crowd for what I was expecting for this film. And The Beekeeper is still very formulaic in its standard Statham film, whatever that means to you or your interest. David Ayer again is the director. He's often a producer, but he did direct Bright, Suicide Squad, Sabotage, Fury, and End of Watch. So in other words, promising here and there, but ultimately a mixed bag. Wimmer is the writer. Him, I'm not so sure about by this point. He had a film several years ago that did alright, called Equilibrium. I have not yet seen it. He also did screenplays for Expendables 4, Children of the Corn in 2020, Point Break 2015, Total Recall 2012, Salt, Law Abiding Citizen, and Ultraviolet. So while there's a couple films I kind of enjoy in there, this story, like a lot of those, is severely lacking. I'll give The Beekeeper maybe a 5.4 out of 10. Again, I enjoyed the action sequences overall. Nothing special, but got me in the mood for another action film later on that evening. But it's just such a run-of-the-mill film Hollywood just pumped out for us to easily watch, make them some more money, and I help them. Now, I likely won't return to this film at any point. Now, I might not even think about this film again in the next couple weeks or month or so. But that's my first quick movie review. Maybe was about as long as Devil's Pass review, but I do enjoy doing these, and some films I kind of watch casually, off and on, just throughout the weeks. I don't always want to do a whole review for everything, so I might do a lot more of these. So let me know what you thought of this, and let me know what you thought of The Beekeeper and Devil's Pass if you've seen them. And I'll see you next time on The Entertainment Room.